Good evening, guys. This is the norma frontalis or the anterior surface of the skull. It looks very dangerous and maybe haunted to all of you guys. Okay, so let's start. So, first of all, main important bone, the name suggests the frontal. The frontal bone. Okay, the other bones are found, that is the right and left maxilla, right zygomatic bone. This is called the right zygomatic bone. Here it is in the skull, the anterior surface right zygomatic bone, and this is the left zygomatic bone, and two maxilla found. Okay, and one mandible found. Okay, these are the basic bones of the frontal region. So now we can see many points to study norma frontalis. In the frontal region, this is called the supraciliary arch. That means this supraciliary arch. If we understand to know what is supraciliary arch, this is the eyebrows line, the line of the eyebrows. The line of the eyebrows, in that case, supraciliary arch represent. Okay, what is this? This is the rounded carved elevation. This is the carved elevation. Carved elevation. Supraciliary carved elevation just above the medial part of each orbit. Just above the medial part of each orbit. Medial part of each orbit. Supraciliary arch. This is the supraciliary arch. Okay, supraciliary arch found. Very nice. And the glabella, this is the medial elevation in that connecting the supraciliary arch. These two supraciliary arches, and here its point is somewhat elevated, right? This is the two supraciliary arches, and this point is elevated. This is called the glabella. Okay, and this and supraciliary arch is better marked in males than in the females. Okay, then we come to a point called nascence. This is called the internasal suture. This is the one nasal bone, this is the another nasal bone, and this is the internasal suture. Here it is the black point found. Yes, this is the internasal sutures. Okay, guys, this is the frontal bone, right? This is the frontal, and this frontal ends here. Okay, ends here, and this is the internasal suture. This point, this frontal and two nasal bone, that suture, and internasal suture, this point is called the nasion. Okay, and frontal tuber is called this part, frontal tuber, frontal region, this is called the frontal tuber. This is more prominent in this is called the frontal tuber. This is more prominent in the females. Okay, so now next part we will see the orbital margins. This is the two orbit that we can see in the haunted horror movies. Here the fire in the orbital, right? Yes. So this is the supraorbital margin. Okay, supraorbital margin. We can see the supraciliary arch, and after this, if you feel your eyebrows here in the point, and then you can feel a bony prominence just above your eyelid. Okay, this is called the supraorbital margin. And superciliary arch and supraorbital margin are very closely present. Okay, and the lateral 2/3 and medial 1/3. Lateral 2/3 and medial 1/3. There is a notch. In that portion also we can see medial 1/3, lateral 2/3. There is a notch. This is the notch. This notch is called the supraorbital notch. Infraorbital portion is very easy. this lateral portion is covered, is given up, is took part by the zygomatic, and the medial portion is took part by the maxillary. In that also, this is the medial portion is took part by the maxillary, and the lateral portion is also took part by the zygomatic. Okay, and medial orbital margin is very ill defined. It is very ill defined and is very close to the nasal bone. Nasal bone is very ill defined, and only the frontal portion of the it's available, and by the lacrimal crest and the frontal process. This is the frontal bone. Yes, this portion is only available, only took part in the formation of the medial end, and the lacrimal crest is also take part in the medial orbital margin. The lateral orbital margin is it is very funny way to learn. Okay, and it is occupied by the frontal process of the zygomatic bone, and above of the lateral margin zygomatic process of the frontal bone. Okay, vice versa is found here. Okay, here also the frontal process of this is the zygomatic bone, I have said you previously, and is the frontal process of the zygomatic bone. This is the zygomatic process of the frontal bone, not more than that. This is the zygomatic, only this above portion is the zygomatic process of the frontal bone. Okay, this is the all orbital openings and frontal regions, and now we are going to the next part, the maxilla part. The maxilla, it is a very small part. Now we have to concentrate here. Maxilla part, there are some important regions, that is the nasal notch. Number one, nasal notch, the part of the maxilla, and the nasal notch, anterior nasal spine. Anterior, this part is broken, that I can also show you the anterior nasal spine. These are very close portions, and that not so clear and cut, clearly found in all bone sets. Very important portion is the incisive fossa. Okay, and this is the tooth. We can see first two are the incisor, 1 2 is the incisor. Okay, and this is called the incisor fossa. This fossa, this is the 1 2 incisor, and above this incisor teeth is the incisor fossa. Okay, this fossa, incisor fossa. Here we can also see 1 2 incisor teeth, and this is the incisor fossa, right? Canine fossa, this is the canine teeth, number 1. This is the laterally present, this is the canine fossa, right? And 1 centimeter below the infraorbital origin, the infraorbital foramen. You can very easily see the infraorbital foramen. This is the lower portion of the orbit, this is the orbit, lower portion of the orbit, and this is the infraorbital foramen. This is also in the here in the right side, infraorbital foramen. You can also see the nib of the pen can easily enter the infraorbital foramen. Okay, in addition, the 3 out of 4 processes of the maxilla also seen in this norma. The frontal process of the maxilla is directed upwards. This is called the frontal process. Okay, the frontal process. Here we can also see the frontal. This is the frontal bone. This is the frontal bone ends here. Okay, ends here. So this part of the norma very near to the nasal bone. This is the frontal process. This some like you can compare with the part of like Sikkim and Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh. Okay, this nasal bone is like the Sikkim of India. Okay, this total nasal part is India, and this is the Sikkim, and this is we may compare with the Bhutan, and here is the frontal we may compare with the Nepal. Okay, so if you if you kindly see the relationship between Nepal, Bhutan and Sikkim of India and the China, this this relationship can be easily understood by you. So then the frontal process I have shown it, and frontal process articulates with the nasal bone anteriorly, inner in the interior surface. This is also the lacrimal bone with the posteriorly. This is the lacrimal bone posteriorly. This is, I can show you the frontal process of the maxilla. The alveolar process of the maxilla, sockets for the upper teeth. This is the anterior process of the maxilla, sockets for the upper teeth. Okay, and zygomatic process is very short. This is articulates with the zygomatic bone. Okay, now easily I can describe you the maxilla. And zygomatic is can be felt in our cheek. The bony prominence we can found. This is the bony prominence, zygomatic. And more details about zygomatic also is seen. And zygomatico facial foramen, we can found very important foramen in the zygomatic, and this is the foramen, zygomatico facial foramen. Some of your bone sets, if they are polished, we can't see the foramen, and here it is also found the foramen. Okay, so my bone set is very good, and I okay, let's the matter drop. And this is the zygomatico facial foramen. I can show you very easily. And now in the next part of the norma frontalis, I can describe you only the mandible. This is called the mandible. Okay, the mandible is the upper part. This I can show you the upper part. Okay, this I can show you the upper part of the mandible, articulates with the lower teeth. Okay, and the lower border is rounded. This is the lower border is rounded, upper border articulates with the teeth, and the middle point of the base is called the mental point. This is the middle point of the base. This is the mental point. Point on the angle of mandible is known as gonian. Here in that portion we can see the angle of the mandible. This is called the gonian. Angle of the mandible. This you can very easily understand why it's called angle of the mandible. Okay. And now the anterior surface of the body of the mandible presents symphysis menti. This portion is called this is the mental point. This is the symphysis menti. Here we can found mental foramen. Here it is one mental foramen, other mental foramen here. Here we can found the other mental foramen. Okay, both side. An oblique line runs upwards and backwards from the mental tubercle. Here we can found the mental. This is the mental point. This is the mental point. This is the mental protuberance. Mental point is just a point. Symphysis menti. This is the two muscle is like the pubic symphysis. This is the symphysis menti. This is the mental protuberance, and here it is found the mental tubercle on the both side, and here we can find an oblique line between the mental tubercle to the ramus of the mandible. This is called the ramus of the mandible. This is called the ramus of the mandible, and this is called the acoustic tubercle. It is acoustic tubercle. It is mainly articulates with the skull. Okay, like this. Okay, and this can found an oblique line. This is the mental tubercle. This is the mental tubercle. This formed an oblique line between the ramus of the tubercle. You can feel it in your bone. And mental foramen I have explained this earlier. It is very important for passing the mental nerve and vessels. Okay, that's all about the norma frontalis. I think it's covered.